everyone. Thank you for joining me today. I am Dr. Lisa, and welcome to my safe space. On my page, I pretty much talk about the importance of being a CEO in your life and within the workplace. And I've been doing this Black History Month segment for each day of Black History Month. And I'm going to continue to do it since the beginning of the month all the way up into the end of the month. I find that people are really finding it engaging. So I'm going to keep going with these topics. And if you have any suggestions, please let me know in the comments below. For today, which is February the 10th day of Black History Month, today's topic will focus on never trade control for growth. Now, this is something that we see all the time, especially if you're big into like celebrity gossip or anything like that. You always hear about 360 deals that a lot of our celebrities get caught into, or getting swindled by their managers and things like that. Well, that's really nothing new when it comes to the founding of this country, and especially when it comes to the enslaved Africans. And one way that Black History Month can help to teach us about that and to learn from that lesson, even though we're still witnessing it in other aspects of people's lives, but this is a way for us to be reminded and to learn from it and not let it happen to us, is to recognize how it was pretty much instilled and utilized, and gaining people's gaining control over people and their ideas and their intellectual property, or their gifts in general, for the sake of growth. Many would give it up, right? Give up their power, give up their rights, give up their patents and all this and that. And it's something to learn from. I actually have some good notes today so that I can break it down and make it a lot more clear and help to align with how the past is still happening today in the present, and for us to learn from it so that it will not follow us into the future. So I'm going to go ahead and read my notes. Please follow along. Throughout American history, Black inventors, creators, and leaders frequently forfeited intellectual property rights, legal ownership, or formal recognition to overall systemic barriers, ensure the adoption of their technologies, or to protect their safety. These actions, also often driven by necessity in a racist society, prioritize long-term progress over immediate power. Examples of giving up power for growth or survival include enslaved inventors when they were unable to patent their ideas. So during the 19th century, laws barred enslaved people from owning property, including patents. For example, Benjamin Montgomery invented a steamboat propeller, but his owner tried to claim it, and the patent office rejected the application because the true inventor was enslaved. These inventors often had to surrender their ideas to owners or partners to see them produced. Another way of taking someone's power or giving up your power for the idea of growth and survival was focusing on selling your rights. So an example of that is Garrett Morgan. While Morgan successfully patented his three-way traffic light in 1923, he eventually sold the rights to General Electric Company for $40,000. $40,000 was a significant sum of money, of course, in 1923, but it damn sure ain't worth what it could be today over long term if he would not have had to sell the rights to his ideas, opting for the immediate financial security rather than the protracted battling of protecting the patents himself. So that's just another way of how we can give away our power, right? By selling our rights. And we hear about that now with a lot of celebrities and how they sell their rights to their music for the hopes of future success, or hopes of being famous. So even that still goes on present day. And this is an example of how the past, we're still following down the road of the past, and it's leading us into the future, and how it's important for us to not fall victim to that and, go further on into it. Another way that people would give up their ideas and power was through anonymous inventions. Many inventors, such as the advancement of the cotton cleaning or agricultural machinery, were developed by enslaved enslaved or free Black people who couldn't patent them. As we mentioned before, you couldn't patent if you were Black or if you were enslaved, and leading to their contributions being lost to history or claimed by white associates. And that's just another way. And even today, people anonymously create things. We don't hear about it a lot, but people still to this day even do that out of fear, depending on what that invention is, especially if we want to believe in, like many people would say, conspiracy theory ideas. There's been recent inventions I've heard of people that have found ways to create power from water, and they haven't patented the ideas for fear that like the government will come after them. I've heard stories of that. If you believe that or not, you can look it up. I've heard stories of that though. And another way was surrendering recognition, as I've said before, with via Gravin T. Woods, who was known as the Black Edison Woods, often had to sell his inventions to competitors like General Electric or Westinghouse just to get them manufactured, to avoid legal challenges from better funded white inventors who claimed he stole their ideas. So yeah, this is a thing too, and we even hear it today. Sadly, this lesson still hasn't been learned and still is being used against those that are poor, right? When they invent something and then someone comes and tries to steal their idea. And so people just give up and they go ahead and they surrender recognition for the hopes of some sort of growth, which would be some sort of financial gain, but they can no longer claim ownership to that property. And it's really sad that we're still dealing with these past ways of doing things and how they followed us into the future. And another way from our past, hi, thank you for joining me. I hope you're doing well. And another way was post-emancipation barriers. Even though those barriers were after emancipation, they still kind of follow us into this day. But this was after slavery and then the entry into Jim Crow law, where you had those barriers where a lack of access to legal resources, which meant that Black inventors such as Henry Boyd could not secure patents, forcing them to operate outside the formal patent system. Now, we hear about these things all the time about how it's hard to just get access and bring a voice and awareness and to creativity. Sorry, I'm typing. Google logged me out. Getting access to these ideas and this information and just, getting ownership and having ownership of our ideas. So what can be learned from Black history and the information that I've just read and how Black History Month helps us to learn from that is to understand that, there's no real growth when you give away your power, right? We see this all the time, even with we hear about stories about celebrities and them giving up ownership of their ideas, or even their power in how they can negotiate their contracts by allowing management to take over and have more power over how they can go about in their careers and things like that. I think that's one major example that we see all the time or hear about all the time when it comes to giving up power and with the idea of giving up power or control. Your power is how you're being controlled. The ideas that you can make and your ideas from your creations and things that you bring forth into the world, or even just the ideas of how you've gone about with creating ways of change. We hear a lot about that, and you hear a lot of infighting when it comes to even a lot of social justice programs, right? There'll usually be infighting. I know there was a lot of fighting when it came to like Black Panther Party and the ownership of that, and even when it came to the Nation of Islam, when it came with Malcolm X or anything like that. You hear about those types of stories. Those are also examples of how you're giving up your power in exchange for growth, where you're giving up the ownership of your ideas, of your inventions, of your talents, of your career, and how you're hoping for the safety. Even back then with slavery, we've learned they did it for survival, did it for fear of being lynched, did it for fear. Hi, Trinity. Did it for fear of, not being able to survive. But now we're still carrying on that same pattern of fear and giving up on ourselves, and not believing in ourselves and how we are the true reason of how we can grow. When you give up what you own and you give up your own intellectual property, your ideas, you're already hindering your growth because you are the reason why these ideas are even coming forth. So when you take away your identity from that and you give it to someone else, you're upholding someone who lacks that actual intelligence. And that's also highlighting how and uplifting the idea that you can be ignorant and still grow and be successful. And it should not be that. You should not want to, allow other people to pass you by or to take your identity, because that's really what it is. You're giving up your identity when you're giving up your intellectual property. You're giving up your power, your knowledge in exchange for the hope of some sort of fame, some sort of fortune, some sort of advancement. And we can see how people do that also in the workplace as well, when they're giving up or allowing for other people to take credit for the work that they've done, and not speaking up and holding those people accountable for stealing their ideas or applying or taking a job that was already yours, right? We see that a lot too, where you are given a position but then it's taken from you all of a sudden and given to someone else because they assume, whoever's doing the hiring, that they are more talented than you, but in the end the person actually was using your work to get where they are. And a lot of people like to give up on that and allow for people to push them back and not take charge of their ideas and what makes them great and speaking up for themselves. So you can see how that lesson of the past, of how that fear of the past still follows us to this day with us into the new present that we are. So for us to be able to be successful and move forward into the future, we need to make sure that we're not allowing fears of the past to stifle and hold us back in our current present and into the future. We no longer need to be fearful when it's our creations that are driving success, right? And if you are the reason for your success and your ideas, or even helping a business to be creative in itself, don't ever deny what makes you great. Don't ever stifle your power, in exchange for the idea of some sort of new job or new opportunity. We can even look at how a good example, if you want to just keep it simple, even how McDonald's was founded, right? McDonald's always had its idea, and the owner signed away the idea of McDonald's, but they agreed to no longer use the name, right? And they signed it away to just someone that said that he was helping them. He was just, I think, a lawyer, actually helping. Help was gonna, help advance the business, right? But he could, the owner of McDonald's could no longer use the name McDonald's. Everything else was the same, but you could not use the name. And the owner signed away the name to McDonald's. And now McDonald's is all over the world, and it is what McDonald's is today. And that creator of McDonald's signed away his power. His control was not only just the recipe, but the name. And so that original McDonald's still operates, but it does not operate under the name McDonald's. So you giving away your power in exchange for like growth and the idea, oh, we're going to make this business grow. And then in the end, as it grows, it's no longer yours because you've signed it away. You've given your power away. We could say this again for also Kentucky Fried Chicken, which is another one, where the owner, he literally was going door to door selling his recipes and ideas, of how to make Kentucky Fried Chicken. He was just a broke man trying to make it. And in the end, he signed off his idea to a larger business in exchange for a desk job. And in the end, Kentucky Fried Chicken takes off. He's left with a desk job, and it's not even his business anymore. We could say the same for Famous Amos. We could say the same for a lot of other businesses. Most recently, we could say, on TikTok, the girl, how she signed that pink sauce away, and all she was given in exchange was a position, right? So this is what I mean when these are lessons of the past that still haunt us today because we haven't learned from them. And the idea of not exchanging our control, which is our power, our intellectual property, our ideas, our creativity, what makes us great, our individuality, right? Because when we have a job or when we are creating whatever we're doing, whether it's entrepreneurial or within a workspace, people are hiring us for our intellectual property, our ideas. What makes us great is our individuality, our brains. That's what they're hiring us for. So when you, in exchange, are giving up your brain, your what you thought of, what you created, for the idea of a position, that you aren't even really going to get, and it's not even going to be as beneficial if you held on to that ownership in the first place. It wouldn't even match that. It wouldn't even match the what you could get if you would have held on to the ownership, because your intellectual property, what makes you great, your identity, your creativity, is going to soar you even higher than what some lawyer or manager or anyone else could do, because you are what's selling that idea. You are what's making people love what you've created. It's not what someone else does. They can dress it up, as I said with McDonald's, it's got all these different I'm loving it and all this and that, but it's still not like the original McDonald's. It's just an idea of it where they were able to market it and just spread it around the world. But it's still based on that original thought process. And I bet you even the original one is probably still using real hamburger and the new one isn't. If you really think about it, I actually need to Google that and see if that's true. Is the real McDonald's, the original McDonald's, really using real hamburgers now compared to the mass produced commercial McDonald's? I'm going to look that up and I'm going to make a video about that, just because we're laughing about that. But it's just a prime example though of how us showing up and us being ourselves is more important than us thinking we need someone else to help us, or thinking we need someone else to tell us what we need to do. We already know what we need to do because we're the ones creating these ideas. So you already know. So you don't really need anyone to tell you. You may need someone to help you structure the systems, right? And to create the idea so that you can market it better or whatever. But you don't need to give your ideas up. You never need to give up your intellectual property. You never need to give up what makes you great. What makes you great is why you're successful. You make it where you are because of you, not because you're mimicking someone, but because you're being yourself. And that's why people that go on and truly believe in themselves and not let fear hold them back are able to soar higher. So that's definitely a lesson that I think we continuously need to learn and look back on, is not giving away our power in exchange for the idea of growth and success. If that's one thing we can take away from Black History Month and just the history in general of the past and how people are treated, any individual, and how someone who thinks they can grab your power can take it and rob you of your successes. And that's not just a Black History Month thing. It's just something that we can look to as Black History Month of being an example, right? Of how we can hinder someone so that we can take that essence, what makes them great, and then profit off of it, which is sad. And we should not live in fear of that, right? Because that was how it was able to be instilled was through fear. The fear that you would be killed, the fear that you would be abused, the fear that you would be stalked, harassed, whatever. And it's even like that still today. We hear a lot about people that are afraid when they do come up with inventions, depending on, how in conflict they are with larger corporations. But even then, I'm here to tell you, stand 10 toes down. Don't let anyone make you be fearful that you have to relinquish your power. Your power is what makes you great. As I said, your power is what strives you and the rest of the world, because you have other people that are looking up to you. And when they see that we're standing in our power, all of those that are inspired by us, they're going to follow suit and do the same. So that's another reason why it's important for us to stand true into ourselves, because as we're leading, others will follow, and our stories will be told, and how our stories will be told, and how our legacies will be built based on our actions, how we show up, and how we help to make it easier for other people that are coming behind us, or easier for those that are alongside us that may need our help, right? Because it's not just about us, it's about each one teach one. And that's the greatest way and the best way to create change within this world and to create a better society, and for you to be the change. Because I know I'm out here walking and talking it. So I'm hoping you are doing the same. And I hope that you guys join me again tomorrow. I haven't picked out my topic for tomorrow yet. If you have an idea, just go ahead and put it in the comments. I'm just enjoying these talks. I'm just glad that you guys are coming in and enjoying them as well. And I really appreciate you all. And until then, as I said, be the change, love yourself and others, and be well. Bye.